How y'all doing? How y'all doing, gang? Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. How's everyone doing? Sorry I've been a little bit MIA, but I was super busy revamping the channel a little bit. And yeah, I was just setting things up for the new streams, but happy to be here. And I'm not dead. But today, I'm super excited because I'm going to be doing most of the Agile ceremonies. I'm going to be walking you guys. It's going to be definitely a very chatty session. I'm going to be walking through all of the retros, the sprint review, and the sprint planning session for what's left of the week. And I will leave in a bit of downtime to talk about your day and any questions that you guys have. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a very chatty session. So having said that, I'm just going to go ahead and put in the work scene here. Just give me 1 second to shift things around. And I'm gonna jump right into our sprint review. Actually, I'm just gonna change one more thing here super quick. Oh, we got a follower. Captain Wasabi, welcome, welcome. And thanks for the follow. Appreciate you being here, whoever you might be. But thanks for joining us. Now let's see. Agile ceremonies. Agile ceremonies. All right, that's the context for today. All right, Agile ceremonies. And we're just gonna jump right into the sprint review. So let's see. I hope this goes well and you guys can take a couple of nudges about presentation. Holy shit. Oh no, my camera broke. Okay, wait, I think I can fix this. Okay, definitely, that is definitely not something you want to take home. Okay, my camera's a bit weird. It's vertical. Let me just switch it back. Okay, that's better. Sorry guys, trying something different here. It always works before you demo it out, and then it just breaks life. That's just how this rolls. Okay, all right. We're just gonna go with this. Okay, wait. There we go. Okay, I guess we're not doing the camera. We're not doing the angle, so I wanted to stand up. We're just gonna go with the little camera on the laptop. So let's just start. That was super awkward. Hey friends. Thanks for joining in. And nice to see some familiar faces around and new friends too. Okay, so like I said, this is gonna be pretty much a yap session. Feel free to follow along and drop any comments or questions down below about what you all are focusing on. For the sprint review, I want you guys to picture, you know, want you to immerse yourselves in a little bit of your daily life, the things that you're doing, the projects that you're focusing on. What does it feel like? Are you rushing to get from one place to the other? Are you really struggling to get that PowerPoint presentation locked in for the day? Big presentation. You're running from place to place, and things are just not clicking. You feel like there's just something that's not connecting. Everything's scattered, right? Now, I want you to close your eyes and picture for a minute, what would you do if you had the possibility to have a clear picture of the places you want to be at, how you're going to conduct yourself tomorrow, and just being able to grasp all of the dreams and the skills that you need to thrive in your personal and professional life. So that is a little bit about the whole goal of the stream and the project that I'm working on. As some of you guys know, I'm working on a project where I want to get better as a product manager, and I want to share all the learnings and things that I find upon my way with all you guys. And the plan is super simple, right? This is our product goal. We are basically prepping for whatever's next, the next stage in our life. And streaming helps a lot with consistency. It helps a lot with communication skills. We're also going to be applying all of these skills that we are gathering along the way in monetization platforms like user testing, for example. At least that's the premise. And that is all going to reinforce our flywheel of the different skills and industry knowledge that we want to build on. That's our product goal. Our sprint plan, or our sprint goal, was to set the structures up so that we can have a 9-week sprint or project roadmap where we can just flow with all of these tasks, all these skills, and pretty much have no setbacks, right? So that was the sprint that we just finished, what we just wrapped up. And here's some of the deliverables. Here's what the end of week 1 feels like. We set up agile structures in Jira where we've had the possibility to view our workflow using Kanban dashboard. I think this is one of the most important tools that we can use, not only to visualize what we're doing, but how much time we're putting into these projects and having a better sense and understanding of the effort that it takes for us to move forward. And that is going to be super important if you are managing a project and you need to rely on others to achieve shared goals. Having that understanding of the effort that it takes to actually get things done, I think that is super, super key. And then we've also set up some structures in terms of our social channels, the streaming channel, setting up OBS to be able to talk with all of you guys. And yeah, this is a little bit of the feel of how getting all of this done looks like. And if we go back to our sprint goals, I'd say that we've checked pretty much all the boxes. We've definitely set up the structures for being able to stream consistently. We've definitely prepped, reviewing different agile concepts, methods, and tools. We have also had the possibility to learn a little bit more about these skills, how they look like, how to put them into practice, and dipping our feet just a little bit into industry knowledge, at least on my side. I'd say that the monetization aspect of it, it's still in the works. I did try user testing. I don't know if it's because, the economic state of the US or the people who use the platform, but I didn't. All I found was surveys. I had no opportunities to review an actual app, review the UI, give my thoughts on it. I was super looking forward to that on week 1. Just didn't happen. So I'm not putting a check on this because I didn't hit the stretch mark of finding a replacement platform, another way to put our skills to the test. So that is kind of a miss, but also yeah, blame shifting for sure. And what is coming up, right? One of the most important deliverables was building this product roadmap, building this story map, if you will, for all the different skills that I want to focus on. And it's a very aggressive timeline, right? We're talking about 9 features that are comprised of 24 epics. You could think of these epics like different business skills. And it's going to take about 30 stories per week. So definitely a velocity that is probably not super achievable or super realistic. And what that means is that I'm going to have to be very surgical about the skills that I think are going to be essential for my next job. And so to get a sense of what is going to be achievable, I divided the epics in 3 different categories. Our first one is obviously the most important ones, the core. What is going to be on the one side, my value proposition to the organization. And I think that having that agile mindset, being able to look at processes and scale the organization with agile structures, that is what I'll be focusing on personally. Then I'm aware that I'm going into a very finance heavy or finance related role. So I definitely need to get up to speed with that. And as far as the industry is concerned, I'm a newcomer, so obviously I need to concentrate on that. And then I have skills that I think are urgent or that are very important but are not at the core or what's basically table stakes of the position. And that is, well, this is less than a skill and more like a survival kind of thing, but I need to monetize some of this knowledge. I think that's a good incentive to keep going at it. I want to develop my marketing skills. That's kind of one of the only reasons that I started streaming. I wanted to have a platform where I can test some digital marketing tools. I'm pretty sure there are some very important marketing skills that I need to keep track of too. But again, it's urgent, not essential. And then communications, which I think is crucial. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I've gotten in terms of how I could grow personally is having better, direct, effective communication. So that is one area of improvement that I really want to focus on. And I think it's good to have as a general business skill. And then these are all down the road skills, not really critical, but definitely things that you want if you're going into a rotational program. That means that companies are giving a vote of confidence in your skill, in you as an individual, and they expect you to someday be able to lead parts of the organization. So being aware, at least aware of the most important leadership skills that you need to hone, I think that's important. And then developing analytics and tech, I think that's just an edge of the school that I went to. So it's probably important to manage some of that for organizations. Big organizations, that's always going to be a plus, especially if you're a product manager too. Having said that, what has changed in the environment? What has changed since I started the last sprint? And well, we are already almost at the closing of the second sprint. But I'd say that things that changed were pretty much complications with streaming software. I had a very big setback with Twitch, and I also decided that I wanted to rebrand my page to be more serious, to be a little bit more engaging, and so that you guys could take away different learnings. So just a rebrand, the audio difficulties, that set me back huge. And I have one very important story that I didn't cover on the first week, which is working on my project planning, or how I'm going to break the learning in the 9 weeks that are left. So I'm trying to get that done before the end of this week. And yeah, setting this whole audio to separate out. That's so complicated. I'll probably make a video on it and share with you guys in case any of you want to stream in the future. So what are the next steps? Just wrapping up this product or this sprint review. I'm going to be focusing on the last sprint deliverable of the timeline, and just a learning from all of these difficulties. I'm going to be setting a buffer to be able to better stick to the schedule that I'm trying to build. Then I'm going to be focusing on the core competencies and developing a media content plan, which I really want to get through by next week. I want to start sharing content with you guys on TikTok so that this is more actionable. You can get more value from these streams. And I think that is something super important, something that I really want to do. So I'll try to sketch things over the weekend, and hopefully by next week, by the end of next week, I can start releasing some short form content videos. Oh, I already kind of procrastinated and finished setting up the socials. So that's a huge positive. That's a dub. And this is the place where I wanted to leave it open for suggestions, comments in the chat. How can I make this more useful for you guys? If you have any suggestions, I am super, super curious to know your thoughts. And I'll give one example. I know with the co-working and, oh, Santiago, thanks for following. I appreciate you being here. I wonder if you are the same Santiago that we had previously on the channel. But regardless, thanks for being here. And yeah, I'm looking for your suggestions. Oh, we got another follower. Anton, thanks so much. Appreciate you. And yeah, so is there another one? I don't know. I don't know. You tell me. You tell me, Captain Wasabi. So, viewer suggestions. I was just about to say that some co-working, or most co-working and co-studying channels are very calm. They have a very, certain demeanor where you work 30 minutes, you leave 15 minutes to chat, but everyone's concentrated in their work. And the other end of the spectrum is very chatty sessions or very chatty streamers that just yap. And right now, I think I'm going to be doing yapping sessions like this. Maybe, once or twice a week, I'll concentrate on just delivering on the updates. And then the rest of the week, I'm just going to take it chill and create a space where we can work together in a comfortable environment. But I'm curious to know if you guys have any hard feelings on these topics or specific thoughts. But I think that's how I'm going to approach it, at least for now. But if there's nothing left to say, I just want to thank you. That was the end of the sprint review. Yeah, I was very happy with it. But since I said this want to be more of a yappy sesh, what I want to do now is assess how that sprint review went. Of course, it'd be nice to find the actual file that I need for this. But I'm going to be looking at the things that you want to focus as a PM when you're doing sprint reviews. There are certain aspects that you want to communicate and that you want to update your stakeholders on. And I just want to share these with you all so we can learn together and see how we did. Okay, here we are. So the sprint review. And a little overview of the sprint review in case you guys are super new to Agile and product management. The sprint review is what concludes your sprint. You've usually had a frame of time where you've worked with your team and you've delivered on something. You've added value to the product, whatever it is that you're creating. There is something you can show There's always something at the end of the sprint, in theory, that you've created that adds value, and by its own, it provides value. So that product, that deliverable that you've worked on, has to be shown in the sprint review. You need to show your stakeholders what you've done. You need to demo that value, and you need to gather some feedback. What are things that you can improve from that product, right? Then what you want to say is discuss what your progress toward the product goal was. I think I didn't do that well on our presentation. I think we didn't quite connect how the sprint, although it's kind of obvious, I feel like there's room for improvement in how you connect your sprint goal to the product goal itself. So this is something that you want to be aware of, right? Compare your accomplishments and how those accomplishments have driven you closer to your sprint goal. Then what is something else that you want to do? You want to see what has changed in your environment, because the sprint review is not meant to be a presentation. It's supposed to be an interactive session where everyone is having their say into how we can improve the product and move forward as one big team, right? And assessing the changes in the environment, well, sometimes it's going to be super, super important, right? What happens if 1 week you're working with tariffs and, the week before you weren't? And lastly, you want to decide what are the next steps that you're going to be working on. So future adaptations, key adjustments, depending on the feedback that you receive, you want to be able to adjust things in the product backlog. Not necessarily in that session, but you definitely want to have that as one important output. How are you using that conjoint work session to modify your backlog and reprioritize stories? And this is just note keeping. Depending on how long you're working on a sprint, you want to hold these sessions to a particular time. And I think we did about 30 minutes, which is kind of on the mark for this small project. This was the first week, so nothing too crazy to share here. Also, not the most interactive sprint review session, since I'm just sharing it with you guys. But yeah, that is the sprint review in a nutshell. Let me know if you have any comments about it, or do let me know if there's a best practice or a different approach in how you guys hold the sprint reviews at your companies. But that was something super fun to do. I really liked the sprint review for it being our first sprint review. I liked it a lot. And now I wanna go into the sprint retro. Let me just change this here. Okay. So for the sprint retro, I have something interesting that I don't know if most of you have seen it. I'm gonna need a little bit of time to set this up, because I don't have an actual presentation, but I do know exactly what we're going to be doing. And this is called the sailboat framework or method of doing a sprint retro. And it's going to be very evident what we're going to be doing in just a minute, as soon as I find the picture that I'm looking for. Actually, I think I know where it is. It's in this sprint retro deck. Yeah, oh, let's not spoil it. So the sprint retro is a working session, right? You don't necessarily need to go out and build a story for this. you're going to be working with your developers, your Scrum Master, and you want to assess the different things that went right and didn't go so well in the last sprint. Let me just adjust here. Let me adjust this picture real quick because it's cropped out a little bit. All right, let's just go with this. Now let's put a nice black background. Perfect. So in the retro, you want to assess different things. You want to take a look at the processes, the interactions, the people, the stakeholders, all these different elements that you're working on when you are going through a sprint. And you want to identify different opportunities to improve the way work is being handled and just acting on it. One really cool way to go about this is through the sailboat method, which identifies the things that have been tailwinds and have propelled us, have helped us get to our goal, get to our destination, deliver value more easily. Then you also want to highlight here in the island the treasures, your dubs, your wins, things that have made the team feel well, breakthroughs, and just wins. You want to have those in that quadrant. And actually, I'm going to be building out a little quadrant for you guys so that it's easier to see. On the reef, what we usually put here is things that represented a real danger to success of the project. And it could be things that we hit and hold us back. It can also be things that we could have hit but missed. And we want to be aware of those to not be impacted by them in the future. And lastly, you have the anchors, things that did hold you back. And let's start on a positive note. So for me, I'm going to go super briefly on what were some of the tailwinds. And here's a little bit of a cheat code. If you're struggling to find things or think of different things, because sometimes you're put on the spot, right? And it's hard to trigger memories, ideas. So what you want to do is just list all the different elements. Let's see how many I remember correctly. So I'm just gonna do a little quick test here. I know you want to look at people, you want to look at interactions, you want to look at processes, maybe. I'm like 50-50 on that one. Perhaps tools. This is not defined in the Scrum Guide or just general resources, but people talk about assumptions that led the team astray. I like to include this here in the retro because I think that one's just super important and doesn't get enough representation. Let's see, I'm missing two more. Okay, I think 4 out of 6 is pretty good for the first time doing a retro. So let's see what, our definition of done, of course. Okay, come on, let's work. Nice. So we missed the definition of done. Oh, look at that. The only thing we missed was the definition of done. Okay, that's good. That's amazing. I'm happy about that. Okay, so I'm gonna say that the tools, actually, honestly, guys, this is all looking like anchors, if I'm gonna be real, because I didn't establish what the definition of done was. that kind of set me back because I got super tunnel vision into bettering the stream, into what is the level of quality that I'm going to be content with to release these sessions, these interfaces to you guys. And some things kind of broke, and yeah, I just spent a lot of time trying to fix things. So I think in that sense the tools didn't really help. Oh, but you know what we definitely got us a dub. I was able to set up Jira without. Why is this so hard to move? I feel so dumb. I just can't move the. Here we go. Setting up Jira was huge. Like once I got that done, things started flowing. I felt so much more confident. Okay, so dubs. We set up Jira. We finally, we nailed OBS. And oh, we also got multi-chat going on correctly. Multi-chat on. But yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag because it feels so good to finally be in a place where things are going smoothly. But at the same time, it took me so much more time than I had anticipated. Like not having that project timeline, not assigning the level of effort. So that is one huge thing of processes that I want to work on. And it's going to be a super takeaway for the retro. And that is estimating effort for user stories. I kind of did, but it wasn't done professionally. It was like, yeah, I guess, it'll take me half a day to set up Twitch, to set up my socials. Oh yeah, like writing a bio. How long could it take you to write a bio? 5 minutes, maybe? And yeah, the thing is, guys, as you start to do these things, even if it's trivial, right? Trivial activities, you start to get a better sense of just how complicated things really are. And the next sprint and the next sprint after that, you start to get really good at estimating things. So that is why you also want to be kind of formal with it and follow methodology so that you have an actual point to trace back to and improve from. I will say people were very accommodating with me. So thank you, Chinita, for helping us out with the stream and taking care of us when I wasn't able to because I was laser focused on getting value delivered. And let's see, what are some potential pitfalls that we avoided? I think that some interactions could have gone bad, right, with the stream. So this is another thing, right? Right now, I don't know if it's because I'm a really small content creator and I don't have access to my analytics yet, or maybe I haven't looked at it quite right, but I really don't know how the spread of my demography is. I don't really know if it's mostly adults that are tuning into the stream, or maybe I don't really know if I'm having underage viewers is pretty much what I'm trying to get at. And I really don't know just how mature. Obviously, this is a self-growth and learning stream, the type of content, and there's no necessity for anything too wild. but I do want to be mindful of, younger viewers and age appropriate interactions. Appropriate. Yeah, so I want to. Okay, what is wrong here? So I want to tune my content to be engaging. Like, I don't want to take myself too seriously, but I also don't want to just be throwing nasty words out there, right? Or acting inappropriately, because I really don't know what my viewership or my target audience is going to look like. So that is a potential reef. I think I'm trying to play it safe. And I also look up to a lot of people that express themselves without the need to add like extra sauce. Like there's no need for swear words and swearing. Like a lot of people that I admire to and I look up to and say like, oh, I wish I could express myself like that person, right? They don't use profanity, and that is something that I've had a crutch with for the longest time. And I feel like if I deliberately try to not use profanity, it will improve my speech, and I think it's kind of working. So yeah, I'm just glad that nothing crazy has happened with the viewers, but I am trying to improve that interaction. And I think, you know, being appropriate to the demographic, that is going to be important. But yeah, I think this is a fair representation of the retro. I don't want it to be super boring for you guys either. I know it's just a demo of how I've gone through it, and I hope you guys learned something. Let me know if you've used this sailboat technique for your retros before. I honestly I learned about this. I learned about this technique this week, and I found it super interesting. It actually feels like something fun that you'd want to do with your scrum team and that you're looking forward to do. I feel like it can be a very objective tool. I feel like there's not going to be many hard feelings about this, right? Because you're honest and you're using a fun framework. So, yeah, this is something that I'm really looking forward to using at my next company or the next company that I'll work on. Having said that, takeaways, right? So, estimating efforts, super important. I think that I've had trouble sticking to what I say. So, for example, if I put stories in my Kanban board and I get them from the backlog to I'll work on this today, or I'm actually doing it, I'm having trouble sticking to that. So, this is maybe a little bit like ahead of time. I don't know if I'm exactly ready for this, but I think establishing whip limits might help me with this. Just trying to stick to things that I can actually handle and try to get one thing done before I actually move to the next. In case you don't know about whip limits and Kanban, so this is my current Kanban board, right? And look at, I have 28 items on the backlog. And it's just loading, it's gonna keep loading. This kind of defeats the purpose, or one of the important purposes of Kanban, which is visualization, being able to, just really quickly look at what you're working on, what needs to be tackled, what are the most important things that have been resolved. And when you set your whip limit, say that it's maybe 10 for the backlog, maybe it's 4 for the things that you're going to be tackling today, 5 for the things that you're doing, and I don't know, right? You pick a number that kind of feels right for you. And that is all you're allowed to have on the board. You can't move things from the backlog to another column if you've hit your whip limit in that column. And I'm gonna try to do something since we're already at the end of the week. Honestly, guys, I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to implement it or enforce it 100%. But I'm gonna try to take a stab at it. I think that might help me a lot, actually. And then let's see. What else? I feel like my structures are pretty solid. I don't think I need to work on anything else other than my project timeline. I think this is going to be super important. Wrap up project timeline. Like now. And the reason I'm trying to focus on the project timeline is I have so little time left to work with. And I feel some of your projects have felt that way too, where you're racing against the clock. So prioritization is gonna be super important, but how can you prioritize if you don't know how much time you're gonna be having left to work with, and you haven't estimated how long it's gonna take you to achieve certain milestones, right? So that is why I definitely need to address the timeline before I move into anything new. That way I can actually start working on my core skills. And there was one more thing I wanted to take away from these little exercise. But honestly, it's not coming. It's not coming back. So I'm just gonna go with this 3, and I'm gonna save this file. I'm making an effort to document all of my sessions, all of my learnings, the different things that I'm picking up. Different things that I'm picking up, and I wanna call back to all these whenever I'm having trouble at a certain project. Maybe I can find inspiration in these documents. I've seen some people use 3 done columns. The work in progress limit set by the average point in the done columns. 3 for done. That's interesting, Anton. What do you think 3 works? I love 3. I think 3 is a magic number and works for most things you wanna do, like the power of 3. It's a great rule. But I wonder if there's a why, and how has that worked for you? I feel like when we address the whys, we really, like, it's different if someone tells you to do something than if you interiorize it. Is that an English word? Interiorize? But yeah, like really thinking about why you do things one way or another, I think it's super important to do. But it's hard. It's most of the times I really can't think, why am I doing this? Okay, let's see. Studies, events. This was our second sprint, and this was our sprint retro. All right, so now I'm going to close the retro, and actually I'm going to leave it open, and I'm going to go through the retro PowerPoint deck to see if we hit all the points that we were supposed to hit. So sprint retro, right? The only thing that you want to take out of the retro is ways in which you're going to be improving your efficiency and quality of work as a team. Okay, so what are some of the things that I didn't address, right? I said that everything felt like an anchor at the first weeks. And there were two main things, I'd say. Like tools, you have problems with tools, what can you do, right? You just gotta fix it. There's not much, like you just gotta power through. Processes, kind of same. I didn't quite address it. I didn't quite go deep into it, but not being super familiar with the concepts of agile and not being not up to speed, but what's the word you say when you are practicing things every day, and the antonym would be when you're out of shape, right? If you're out of shape, you're gonna have a hard time and you're gonna lose time just tracking your thoughts, thinking about the things that you want to focus on in the future. So that's one thing that held me back. I think reviewing concepts in advance is gonna help. But the most important thing that I didn't touch on was having a definition of done. And I should definitely set clearer definitions of what I'm going to be considering done to release. Work on some level of definition of done. Oh, look, and then actionable steps towards the product backlog. So if there's something very important that you want to focus on, right? From the takeaways, from the things that you've reviewed, you want to either address it immediately after the sprint retro, or you want to add it as a new story in the product backlog. And one other thing that we didn't quite do in this exercise was prioritizing, right? Because obviously you're going to find so many opportunities for improvement, but you only have so much bandwidth. And you want to address the most important blocker from your last sprint, or the area that is going to be providing most value to your team. In this case, I think it's going to be the project timeline, because as soon as I wrap that project timeline, I'm going to be able to know, okay, I don't have enough time to work on my tech pet project. I'm not going to be having time to learn this vibe code, AI, agentic workflow that you want to build, right? Like things like that. So wrapping up the project timeline is going to be super, super key. And since that is technical depth, if you will, from sprint number 1, the one thing that I take into the next sprint would be estimating the effort for user stories. I think that is going to be so, so key. I think that you want to have a professional methodology for getting that estimation done. You know, at least doing something other than, yeah, I think it's going to take me 20 minutes. Something a little bit more serious. So I'm just going to highlight these because it is worth to prioritize. And then let's see, did I miss something else? Well, you want to do an inspection of the things that you did. We obviously did that with a super cool framework. Identify your improvement opportunities. Of course. Like I said, we didn't prioritize and we didn't necessarily add it to our product backlog. So area of improvement or opportunity for improvement. And this is the time that you want to allocate. So seeing at the clock, we took about 20 minutes for the sprint retro. I think that's super fair. Again, working with half the times for 1 week projects here, since this is a solo project. But yeah, guys, what did you think of the sprint retro? I really liked it. And I'm looking forward to next week where I can dive a little bit deeper into the sailboat thing again. But for today, all that's left is the sprint planning session. And let me go into my folder here just to see if I'm pretty sure I didn't have anything prepared for the sprint plan session. Yeah. So we're just gonna go at it. And if I'm being super real here, I feel like this is probably where I'll need a little bit of help, because what you want to do at the sprint planning, and going by heart here, is you take all of the feedback from the prior two sessions, right? You've just had a talk with all your stakeholders in the sprint retro, let's say in the morning. Then you wrap it up with a sprint retro, and that concludes your sprint. And you have all these ideas that you want to work on, you want to prioritize things. So the sprint planning session is going to be focusing on realigning your user stories. How can you process that as a team? The Scrum team thinks about ways in which they can get the stories done. They break apart elements from the features, the epics, and they mold them into actionable working items. Yeah, you mold these PBIs into things that you can actually get done in 1 day or less. So I know that's what's at the core of the sprint planning session. Like I've been saying, you should use some serious tools or methodologies to estimate how much time that work that you're setting yourself up to do is going to take. But I feel like I'm also missing some important things. And before I dive deeper into taking a look at the user stories that I'm going to be covering in the upcoming sprint, and maybe shift things around and show you guys how it's done in Jira, I do want to take a look at what we should actually do from a theory standpoint. Okay, so look, this is super, super important, and the most, probably one of the most critical things that can come from the sprint planning session is defining the sprint goal. And the sprint goal needs to be a recollection of the things that you've gathered from your stakeholders, of things that have changed in the environment and that work time frame. And you want to bake that into how are we going to be able to deliver the most amount of value for the product in this upcoming sprint. So you want to walk out with the sprint plan session with a sprint goal. You want to walk away with the things that you're going to be working on. And like I said, you want to break those things into 1 day or less items to actually get things done. Yeah, the sprint plan session is no joke, guys. It's actually kind of hard. So we might have to follow the book here and just go through the process. So, like I shared, I'm already halfway through this second sprint that I'm going to be working on. And I'll take you guys to Jira so that you can see how things look in a traditional project or product management tool. Here, so first I'll show you guys what the whole roadmap looks like, right? So here I have all the different features that I showed you in the sprint review session, right? I want to work on agile skills, finance, developing industry knowledge, so on and so forth, right? We have these 9 different skills, and all these different skills are broken down into subcategories, right? From agile, what are things that you can learn from agile? You can learn how to use different tools. You can learn how to better prepare or upgrade how you lead ceremonies and how you build out your roadmap. And you do this little explosion or dive deep into all the different skills or things that you're working on, which are called epics. And those epics are comprised of, the more down to earth things, the things that you can actually work on. And yeah, this is like the roadmap that we have so far, just up for the release, the second release. And I have a little bit of user stories for the third release that I know I'm not going to get into the second release and in the day that I have left to work. But it's a lot. It's a lot. And I just wanted to share that overview. So right now, what I wanted to share, having shown that, is the sprint goal that I set up for the second week. And like I shared with you guys in the sprint review, I was going to be focusing on my core skills, because what if you turn the completed ones green? Oh, on my Kanban board? Well, what do you mean, Anton? If I turn the... Oh, like here on my backlog. Well, let's see. They have a little green tab, but do you mean like the whole block? Like the sticky note one. Oh, right. On my... Okay, so here's the thing, right? This was my initial user story mapping. I did this to, for me, have an initial visual of what this is going to look like. And it actually went through a couple of iterations. I'm going to show you real quick, right? This is how I kind of started 2 weeks ago. I knew that I wanted to work on some very important things on my initial setup, the prep, have a little content pipeline. Then I try to structure it into weeks, right? Okay, first week, I'm gonna try to go live. Second week, I'm gonna try these different things, and I'll take care of whatever's left in the upcoming weeks. Then it became a little bit more serious. Okay, right? These are the different things that I'm gonna be setting up. And then it was like, okay, let's get serious. What are the things that I actually want to work with? So why haven't I turned these green? It's because this was just a tool, an element for me to kind of populate Jira. And, I'm certain there are different ways you can approach this, but what worked for me is having a visual representation of everything that I want to get done so that I could then upload or follow that structure in Jira. And I'll show you guys an example, because I think this is a good question of how you get these done, right? Say I want to add one more thing in Agile here. Let's say I want to, well, let's see, what is one thing? Let's say I want to also learn a little bit about being a Scrum Master. Maybe, this could help me help my Scrum Master in the future. And I wanna do two things, right? I wanna know or have an general understanding of what their mission is in the team. And maybe I'd want to, let's see here. Okay, this is not working. And maybe I'd want to just learn about the different frameworks that they use, like a general understanding and frameworks. Maybe I could also do something like researching or knowing about the most important or influential Scrum Masters, right? You could set those up as tasks or user stories that you want to focus on. And the way you integrate that in Jira, or you'd transition from your road mapping storyboard to Jira, is you'd add an epic here. So this, oh, we're in the Kanban board. So you go here to the backlog tab. And I'll definitely I'll have to share a little video with you guys by next week of how to set things up in Jira, because I had a really hard time setting it up. It's not as intuitive. But on this left column here, you have your epics, right? If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can create an epic. And we're going to name it, where did it go? I think we missed it. So we'll need to name this something like Agile Scrum, right? Agile Scrum. And then you want to add a couple of issues to your backlog. We talked about researching important Scrum Masters. Exactly. That's pretty much it. It's a springboard, a visual springboard to follow that same structure. And the beauty of it is once you set everything up in Jira and it gets you set up and running, then you can rely on the Kanban board to move things around more freely, right? You don't have to go back to every single little story and format things, because you are moving it along the storyboard and things get updated automatically. So it's a really, really powerful tool that I just discovered, and I'm super excited about learning more and seeing how to customize things better. There are definitely some advanced features here in Jira, like you can track how fast your team is developing things. So you can have a better sense of what are some realistic things that you can deliver. It's very, very cool. I'm still learning about it. So yeah, be on the lookout for that one. But I really like it a lot. And that automation is kind of the beauty of it all, because this all takes time, like setting the visuals and the structures, the sticky notes, rearranging things from one place to the other. Yeah, like I said, not having all these processes set up really set me behind on my schedule, but it helped a lot to get things started. Okay, that was a little a little very big, not segue, but detour. That was a little detour from our sprint plan session. Okay, and yeah, like I said, our sprint goal is going to be focusing on the core competencies. Why? It's kind of redundant, but I think it's a good question to ask. In my case, I want to focus on it because I want to have some small wins. I think it's important to measure your wins, have meaningful progress that you can track, right? If you said, okay, today I learned about 3P. 3P is performance, price, party. And it's when a new product is becoming competitive with an existing technology, service, whatever, right? And it can compete not just on its differentiators, but rather, price is no longer a question. And it's more about the usefulness or the value proposition, the value added proposition of that particular product. And yeah, like documenting those small wins and the core competencies, that is huge to get into the rhythm, get into the flow, and it'll give me a better sense of being aware of how lost in the woods I am of the things that I actually need to focus on. Honestly, guys, I'm super worried about finance. I'm super worried about I'm going into the energy industry, and I really don't know much about it. So I know there are very good YouTube streamers out there. So I'm planning to do a recollection of some of the better videos and compile things. But having an understanding of just how much there is to learn definitely helps in setting those timelines up better too, or adding things that you weren't aware of before. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't know what you don't know. So let's know, right? Let's know about it. All right, I think that is a good enough justification as to the why. Our PBIs, okay, we'll just go to Jira, set those up, and then this is going to be hard, but one of the things that I'm looking forward to, and I'll have to go back to some academic resources to look at the different methodologies in which I can break these tasks down and estimate the effort. It's something super important that I know sprint or scrum teams do, but I haven't had the chance to do that professionally. So definitely get to it. Okay. So I'm just gonna jump into Jira. This is gonna be a little, I don't know, let's see what we find here. And since I've already set up everything in my backlog, I'm gonna be jumping to my Kanban board and rearrange things here a little bit more intuitively. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna put this into the doing. You know, for practicing agile ceremonies, today was a very, very big day, and that's why, oh, this is another important thing off the Kanban board. You wanna put things up, and this also holds true for your product backlog. The higher up items are on your list, the more important they are, and you know, it symbolizes that you wanna work on those first. So obviously you can rearrange things, and these kinds of spaces in the product planning and a midpoint of the sprint, you can take a look at these different things. As a product manager, actually you want to be constantly looking at your product backlog and rearranging it so your developers can deliver value on the things that you know are the most important things. But you know, generally, at least as a group, you want to have 2 points, like the sprint planning and maybe a midpoint in the sprint in which as a team you can rearrange all these. Okay, so I really want to move this to doing. And since I already conducted the Scrum ceremonies, because this is the last one that I had in the books for today, I'm just gonna move this to done. Let me see, I don't know if it's my PC acting up, but I'm pretty sure you can just drag these along. There we go. And I promise that by the end of the session, I'll trim down my done column to just have 3, probably the 3 most important stories that I worked on. And I'll also ask, you know, actually, I really want to get this. It's itching at the back of my head. Why do we want to keep just 3 user stories on the done column? So I'm going to see if ChatGPT has a nice answer for this. Hey, why would I stick my done column in Kanban to just having 3 items? Is it a best practice or followed in academia? Oh, okay, so done is, okay, Captain Wasabi, you're gonna have to tell me a little bit about what the reasoning model is, because I haven't heard about it. But it's interesting to see that, you know, things in the done column are not actually done. They're just wrapped up and ready for review. You want to assess if your increment is pretty much usable, right? So, but that's why I'm curious to know why just 3. Okay, well, thinking about it, if you stick to 3, then that forces you to demo those stories out and see if there's anything that needs adjusting, right? And before you start to develop more value and things go astray and it's, oh, this is not exactly what we needed to do, that's probably why you want to force yourself to 3, right? That kind of makes sense. I like that. Click the light bulb. What? Oh, what, ChatGPT. Okay, I kind of clicked the light bulb myself on my brain though, so I think like we sorted that out. Okay, I'm gonna open a new session and see if the answer differs with the light bulb on. Also, like, I'm not gonna lie, this is not exactly how I talk to ChatGPT off camera. Oh my god, I didn't hit the reasoning button thing. Okay, 3rd time's a charm. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know if you guys interact with ChatGPT in a certain way, but you know, I'm usually super laid back. Like, I'll call him broski, big dog, what's up, G, right? Am I weird or is that normal? I'd ask it to pretend it is an expert in, oh, so you want to prompt engineer this. Okay. I'll tell you what, let's do this. I'll hit the research button just to see how the answer differs from the exact same prompt, and then I'm gonna prompt engineer it. And I'm also gonna hit the reason. So what does hitting the reason button do? Like, is it a different model or how does it work? If you were an agile expert, why would you advocate for using 3 as a whip limit in Kanban for your dot column? Seen people getting way weird with their LLMs. Oh, yeah, I've seen that too, for sure. What have you seen, Captain Wasabi? But yeah, it can definitely get super weird, super fast. Okay, this is pretty solid. 5 bullet points, 5 points. Oh, look at that. So okay, so all of the 3 answers were bulleted. So it seems like it's reasoning or it's structuring the answers in a similar way. But look at this. This is way more yappier. Like, this is non-stop big paragraphs, like kind of hard to get through, like just to skim. It's harder to skim, but let's see at the quality. I want to check this one first. Here's why they do it. Adding inventory, but undelivered work. Okay. Maximizing flow and minimizing cycle time. Okay, so this is what I was saying about the rule of 3. It just works. Like, the rule of 3 is super magical. But I'm gonna be honest, Captain Wasabi, like I think it's missing one of the realizations that we thought of, which is just we haven't had the chance to actually test this out and see if anything needs tweaking. So I'm not gonna lie, a little bit disappointed. Basically, just taking an average of the number of story points you completed in the last 3 sprints. to the 3 done column stuff I was talking about. Okay, I'm getting these messages mixed up. Let's see. So Captain Wasabi says it structures the reasoning progress. Yeah, okay. That kind of makes sense. I can see that. And then Anton says, are you referring to the 3 done column stuff I was talking? Yeah. That's exactly what I was talking about. Like why 3, right? Basically just taking an average of the number of story points you completed in the last 3 sprints. Maybe I'm a little dumb, but I'm not seeing that. But regardless, I think 3 works. 3 works well. And then let's just take a quick look at this answer. We prompt engineer this and we asked it to reason or use a reasoning model. Let's see, here's why. Keywords are small and frequent, okay. Prevents hidden bottlenecks. Beyond 3, it signals your release Q&A process is lagging, you're spot on. Okay. I think this is where the money is. Context switching. Reviews, dogs, demos. Okay, I'll just say the songs have been bangers tonight. Thank you, YouTube algorithm. Yeah, okay. Captain Wasabi, I'm impressed. Prompt engineering actually worked. It's a way better answer than the other one, at least for sure. Click on the thought section to check out the reasoning process. Oh, okay, cool. That is definitely super useful because sometimes you feel like it's not picking up exactly what you said. So I like that. I'll keep a tab on it next time I use it. Okay, Anton. Basically just taking an average of the number of story points you completed in the last 3 prints. So a historical estimate of how many story points you've been able to complete each sprint on average. Okay. Oh. Okay. I'll give it a go then. I guess 2 sprints out, I'll average what I do in this sprint and the following one, and I'll put it to a test, average it out, see how it feels in the Kanban board. Has that worked for you? Like, is your team comfortable doing that average? And also, I'm curious, is 3 what you work with? Is that your average, or are you rolling with a higher number? Having said that, guys, I'm just gonna start rearranging, reprioritizing this so we can move along on the sprint planning session, because you also want to keep your allotted time constraint, right? And I also want to leave some time at the end to just chat. Okay, so I'm trying to look at core epics, right? I know Agile is core epic. Okay, so comms is not a core epic. And I wanted to work on my storytelling techniques, presentations, professional speaking skills, a tidbit of different kinds of things to prep for this session. I didn't do it. I didn't have time to do it, and I'm not going to be having time to do it for the next sprint either. So I'm just going to move this down, just sticking to our reasoning. Okay, I need to catch up on finance, so I'll leave that there. Leave that there. Okay, this is something, this little story here. If you guys are ever going into a new company, you should definitely do a cultural audit. And that means taking a look at Glassdoor, taking a look at what people are saying about the company, trying to interview, network with people from within to get a sense of what that vibe actually looks like. Not only to know if that's somewhere you want to work with, the company you want to work with to begin, but also to be proactive and know what you're setting yourself up to so that you can have success in your next role, pretty much. And I'm going to leave that all the way up there because I'm behind on it and it's super, super important. It's part of the score skills anyway. This first time experiences, I wanted to keep track of my feelings since I'm still at the beginnings or the earlier stages of all this plan that I'm rolling out. Like, for example, I haven't started with a process of doing short form content, and I want to capture my thoughts, my feelings, so that when I actually start creating useful things for you guys, I can be more empathetic or focused in my approach. And it's part of not agile, but what a PM does, right? The intersection of user experience, technology, and business. And I want to develop that user experience skill set. So that's why I have it here on agile ceremonies. I think it's important, but not super critical to the upcoming position. So I'm going to leave it I'm going to give it a little bit more attention, but I'm going to leave it at the end of the core competencies. And right now, all I'm trying to do is look at all the different elements of the core competencies, the core epics, and try to find reasons to move them up. Perhaps they don't necessarily belong in sprint number 2, and they could benefit from being in sprint number 3. Also, there's not enough time for everything. For example, I'd really benefit from taking a look at this agile crash course, for example, to set up the work in progress limits in Kanban. But I know that right now, with how far along into the week we are, I'm not going to have time for this. So I'm just going to leave it for sprint 3. Well, we are refining the PBIs. This is definitely something that we want to bring all the way up to the top. And it seems like I'm pretty much done with reprioritization of the backlog. Yeah, I like where we're at here. Also, it's not super engaging for you guys. I hope that was enough to give you a feel of how you can move things along the Kanban board. And what I'm going to do now is break this down. Okay, so this is probably the most interesting part of the sprint planning session. And I'm going to do a cutoff. I'm going to just focus on the core elements. So I want to see what's the last story that I'm going to be working on this sprint. That is going to be this one, the company audit story, which is this little deliverable thing. And it's just out of reach here. Okay, now a little segue into doing actual estimation. There are different ways in which you can determine how difficult it's going to be to work on different tasks. But independent of the methodology that you use, you want to stick to assigning values following a... Okay, why is my camera unsubscribing for live today? Just stay there. I didn't even touch it. Anyway, you want to use a Fibonacci sequence when you assign values to how difficult things are gonna be estimated to be. And all that means is you go from a 3 to a 5 to an 8, and you increasingly go up all the way to 34, I think. And you know, the lower a number is, the easier. Oh yeah, technical difficulties, always setbacks. That's why you want to have a little bit of a buffer in your project timeline. And yeah, you just go from small to big, and you estimate the effort, you put a number to sort. Simple. So we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories that I want to estimate the effort for. And I want to take a look at a method called weighted shortest job first, something like that. So I'm trying to find actually, I'm just going to Google it. And pardon the brain farts here, but let's see what we find here. Shortest weighted job first. There we go. Weighted shortest job first. All right. Let's see how we can calculate this. So one other element or framework that you can use is Moscow, where you separate the product that you're working on by the criticality of its components. Say, I don't know if you guys are on a phone or laptop, 70% chance that you are all watching on a laptop though. Although being this late at night, I put my money on phones. You know, what does a laptop absolutely need to function, right? Or a phone for that matter. You need a monitor to see what you're interacting with, and you need some kind of keyboard, right? Or if not a keyboard, you need some type of interface where you can interact with that computer. So those are the most critical elements. And then say at the tail end of it, maybe you'd have things like light, adjusting settings like volume switchers, right? On and off things. And that is Moscow. But with weighted shortest job first, you can get a little bit more technical into assigning value. And I want to take a look at how you can actually do this. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing. It's just looking a little bit too complicated. So I'm just going to go back to our friend ChatGPT here. See what he can cook up. Hey, I'm estimating the effort of the user stories for my second sprint. I'm thinking of using the weighted shortest job first approach. How should I approach it? Think as if you were an agile expert. Answer as if you were an agile expert. but keeping it as simple as possible. I'm gonna hit recent here to see the different steps that it's taking. So where do you click, Captain Wasabi, to take a look at the thought process? I remember I stumbled upon it one time. Must have, should have, would have. Yeah, for sure, for sure. That is definitely one way to do it. That's weird. I didn't see. Maybe it's at the end here. Mini, edit, real app, response, copy. That's weird. I don't see the button to see the reasoning aspect of it. But I know I've seen it. Run it again. Okay. Oh, it's like an in real time thing? Should be at the top. Yeah, like it appeared for just a second, but at the top. Archive. No, it's not showing up. It's not here either. But anyway. Yeah, it's alright. That's fine. You can always go to Perplexity if you really, really want to see that breakdown. Okay, so we've listed our candidate stories, right? We have those on the board. Estimate the job size. Okay, so this is a Fibonacci sequence to assigning effort that I was telling you guys about. Pick a size based on complexity, risk, and effort. Okay. Okay, so you estimate the effort that it's gonna take. DeepSeek has a great oh, you've used DeepSeek. Nice. I think I tried it once and I didn't quite like it. Like it felt. Oh, I remember it didn't have web searching capabilities. So I was kind of let down by it. Like I bet it's a great reasoning model, like you're saying, but I didn't use it again because it just fell a bit short with not having web searching. But I'll give it a go for reasoning if you've liked it. What have you used it for? I'm curious. Okay, so we list the stories, we estimate value of the effort, we estimate, oh, the cost of delay. What is this? So like the opportunity cost, right? Yeah, this is pretty much opportunity cost. And then you use a formula, right? Cost of delay. Sum the factor scores, e.g. A, B, B, T, C, C, O, D. For each story, give each factor a 1/10 score. I'll look into this a little bit better. Oh yeah, it has very limited access tools. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go back to, I don't know if I want to do this in Miro or Miro. Probably just Miro. It's the same thing anyway. I'm gonna do this effort estimation real quick since it's close to midnight here on Eastern time. I'm gonna be aiming to wrap this up in like 6 minutes, maybe. Let's go 7 minutes, 1 minute per story. That gives us about 30 seconds per. Oh my god, per yeah. let's just get at it. UX design thinking tools. How did this get to the top of my backlog? Okay, I'm definitely not prioritizing this, not for this sprint anyway. Refine the timeline. Refine project timeline. Super important. Let's do, okay. For elements of the timeline. And then just gonna put read finance books. See finance exercises. What else? Refine PBIs, which we are kind of doing right now. And I'm gonna do the company audit culture as a last story here to estimate. Company audit. All right. So we wanna assign a value for effort. Okay, let's just put effort here. Let's do something a little smaller. So effort for the company audit, let's go from 1 to 8. 1 being very easy, 8 being, or I guess, very short and very long. I'm thinking this could be a 5. It's not like crazy long, but just in comparison to these other user tests, which are super, super trivial and super small, I'm actually gonna give it an 8, just out of proportionality. Then refine the PBIs. So to refine the PBIs, you pretty much want to break them up into smaller tasks, right? I think this is a good, like depending on how many stories I focus for sprint 3, for example, this could probably be an effort 5 for sure. Project timeline is definitely a 5. And only because I've already started to work on it, otherwise I'd give it an 8. So 5 works. It's gonna be easy. I'll just give it a 3. I'm just gonna give it a 3. Fairly quick. I'm gonna leave this as a 3 because it's gonna be a daily challenge for me to get this done. So it's gonna be very easy, but in time, like in the sense of how much time it's gonna take me in the week, it's gonna take some hours. So I'm just gonna leave 3. And same for the finance exercises. Okay, so we have our measure of effort for all these stories. Now, what else do we need here? So usual story point scale. Okay, we've estimated duration or effort, cost of delay. Yeah, this works. So ChatGPT is helping us. You want to think of 2 things that you're going to be assessing. How important is the story in terms of creating user value? And yeah, what's a good example for time criticality? Because if you're aiming to get things done in a sprint, like if you're aiming to get everything done in that same sprint, how is missing that element? Yeah, I guess, how important is it, right? If, for example, you don't have the project timeline, it's going to affect subsequent parts of the plan, right? So time criticality is super important. I'm just gonna put these two factors: criticality, time criticality, and I'm gonna go with 1, 2, 3 instead of 1 to 10, just to make things a little bit easier. Well, but then when we weight these out, maybe it's got the risk of making our estimation fall way too much on one side or the other. So I'm gonna go 1 to 5 for a better assessment here. So let's go 1 to 5. Time criticality for the company audit. This is not gonna hurt too much. So I'll just put a 2 here. The PBIs are definitely important because it'll help with estimation. So I'm gonna give it a 3. You know, incorporating buffers, it's a good practice. I don't think it doesn't create bottlenecks or dependencies. So I'm just gonna go with a 2. Okay, so I do want to give a bit more prioritization to getting started with finance because it's coming up, and this is the one area where I'm lagging behind. So I'm actually gonna give these a 4. And now let's assess business value. Just straight up value, right? The company audit, that's actually super important. Again, I'm gonna go with a scale of 1 to 5. We're finding the PBIs. That is not super valuable. This is more of an internal tool or internal process. Definitely things that you're gonna be delivering or that your customer is gonna appreciate. You can definitely give a higher value to that. Define project timeline. But then again, if you have things that are gonna propel things forward, like knowing what the project timeline is gonna look like, do give it a good weighing of value. This is definitely not that important, just getting more buffer time for planning. It's gonna be important, but just in comparison, proportionality is not there with all these other tasks. I think these are also going to have super high value. So you already know, just looking at these values here, that the finance part is going to come way up top in the prioritization or this framework for getting things done. So what do we have now? Sum the factor scores. Business value times the value, time criticality times, you sum it up. Okay, so let's do that. Let's see. Sum. Product sum, right? How did this formula go again? Oh, so it's just a simple sum. I thought you had to multiply things. Okay, that makes things super easy. 7, 5, 9, so 3. And these are 8s. And for the last step, ooh, look at that, guys. Just 5 to 4 minutes behind schedule. Not bad. Not bad for a guess of how much longer it would take. Calculate the weighted shortest job first. Okay. Cost of delay by job size. So 7, I'm gonna need a calculator for this just to get this done quickly. So what's 7 divided by 8, right? Yeah, cost of delay by the effort. Yeah, exactly. 7 divided by 8. This is just call it, or actually shortest weighted shortest job first. This is 0.875. Then we have 1 here. Auto finding the PBIs. We find the project timeline. 9 by, ooh, this is almost 2. What's 9 by 9 divided by 5? 1.8. That was that was kind of dumb. I should have known that. This is another 1. I don't want this to be. Ooh. Yeah, so definitely finance is coming up on top. 2.6. That's crazy. So now you know. Now you know how to prioritize all your work items. Yeah, and this is kind of, it's intuitive, or you could have done this intuitively, but this just get things done more professionally. So you have an actual framework and methodology to stand by your choices, which is always going to be super important when, if something goes wrong in the sprint, you have justification, you have a thought process. That is super important learning that I stumbled upon early in my professional career. And that is also why my channel, I called it Professional Guesser first. Because everyone's guessing, every professional out there is guessing, but they're making calculated guesses and they follow specific protocols and methodologies. And that's the only thing that sets them apart from casuals, right? It's just following formal structures, procedures, having a plan and applying it. So yeah, this was eye-opening. I liked it a lot. I like it a lot, Picasso. But yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna wrap up the sprint backlog review here. So goals, right? You're gonna have your why, which is your sprint goal, your what, which is the prioritization of the PBIs. You want to have a plan to deliver them, which is like breaking down the elements and estimating that effort. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so these are all elements that each party does in the sprint planning. And the PO is kind of like the ceremony master here, but he, along with the Scrum team, develops the sprint goal that will deliver that value, or the proposed sprint goal for that time frame of work. The stakeholders just have their say maybe you're bringing stakeholders over because you have a very specialized story that you're going to be working on, or the sprint really depends on one specific team. So you want to have their input just for that. But honestly, guys, like you've already met with the stakeholders in the morning during the sprint review. So it's going to be unlikely that you have the availability of another CXO for your afternoon meet in the sprint planning session. So you want to have captured that feedback prior, and now you're just meeting with more specialized subject matter experts. And then, yeah, you just break down what can be done. This is something that is only relying to the Scrum team. This is like when you start doing this, the rest of the business areas can do their own thing. You can release them, and you can just start working with your Scrum team by this point. Yeah, look at this. You can use certain tools to forecast with more precision, right? You can use your past performance, which is something that we're going to be looking in Jira next week. Your upcoming capacity. I actually don't know much about how to calculate upcoming capacity, so I'm really looking forward to learning more about that and having your definition of done. Because again, if you have a definition of done, you can stress how much you want to work on the quality of your products, right? Lastly, how work get done, just decompose them. Like I said, you want to make these less than 1 day work items. And lastly, the sprint planning session is a longer session because it takes a lot of time to prioritize, to shift things around, and to calculate the effort. But that is it. That's a wrap, guys. Those were the sprint reviews, the sprint planning session, and the sprint retro. I learned a lot. I learned a lot in that process. I enjoyed. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for the input. I appreciated it a lot. And yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a nice growth experience. Let me know if you guys learned anything. Maybe the sailboat approach was something new. Maybe, working in Jira. But I'm super excited about Agile. I'm super excited about learning more about the different processes, the tools. And what I like the most is that it gives a lot of structure. I feel like, I'm a very scattered person and I have a hard time concentrating on one thing. I low key don't know if I have ADHD or not. And having this structure really helps out. I feel like I've been way more committed. I always look forward to streaming, to getting work done, moving things in the Kanban board, and visualizing my progress. It's definitely helped a lot. But yeah, I hope this helped you too. And I hope that you learned something from this. And I really look forward to streaming tomorrow. I'm thinking of doing a very chill session tomorrow, just co-studying, co-working session. I'll probably do it an ASMR one too, just because it was kind of fun when I did that last week. And yeah, if you guys have any comments or any questions just to wrap up the stream, put it in the chat. But other than that, guys, I just want to say huge thanks for joining the stream, following along. It makes me super happy. And yeah, I really like that weighted. It's a bit of a mouthful though, Anton. Weighted shortest job first. Definitely not easy as having English as your second language. But yeah, super visual, and that is one of the most interesting things that I found out about Agile. It's very visual. But all right, guys, I'll leave you with that. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good one.
and it can't be a Doxgus either.